Hey guys, James here with Waterford Business Solutions. And last week we started on a video talking about debt with your company and is debt good or bad. If you haven't watched that already, I definitely recommend that you go back, watch that video first, and then come back and join us on this video because this video is really going to be a building block off of that first video because we're going to be talking about not whether debt is good or bad here, but when debt turns into a debt cycle, basically where you're using debt to pay off debt. Now, we talked a little bit about that last week, but we're really going to dive in a lot more this week. So definitely want you to get that basis first before we dive in further. And then make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to us here because next week we're going to continue on this debt discussion and talking about debt ratios, quick ratios, current ratios, all of that to really help you understand when it makes sense to take out debt and when you might be getting to the point of being over leveraged. Now, last week I briefly mentioned about basically fixed loans where a company will reach out to you and say, hey, we'll give you $100,000 or $125,000 and you've got 18 months to pay us back and you're going to pay us back $142,000. Those are generally loans that we want to avoid if at all possible. Those are coming out from really high debt situations. They're unsecured, and a lot of times they're, for lack of better terminology, a form of predatory lending. Most of the time, these companies are reaching out to businesses that they know are struggling, or they've gotten your number because you've gone and you've looked at sites like businessloans.com or looked at some type of quick loan, QuickBooks loans, HCP loans, things like that. And you've looked there and they will then sell your information to other companies because they want to make more money off of you, but they sell your information to other companies who start reaching out to you. They make this stuff sound so simple. Hey, go ahead, show us your P&L, we'll go ahead and give you money, and it's this simple payback period, etc. But a lot of times these companies will provide loans that they know you can't pay back, and it creates issues. We've had many clients get into situations where they are so over leveraged and they can't afford to pay back these loans, but they were given these loans. This is when we get into a bad debt cycle. Now, when you go to a normal debt situation and you're buying a vehicle, you've got a fixed interest rate. Yes, you know that there's going to be this payback, but generally there's an early payoff discount. Even some of your loans like this, when you go to some loan websites, etc. here, they may offer an early pay discount, and those are perfectly fine. But these loans that are, this is the payback that you're going to have, there's no early pay discount, they may come to you and they may say, hey, after 6 months, we'll have a relationship, we can refinance your loan, we can get you a lower rate. That's a debt cycle. They're getting you in the door, they're giving you money, they're giving you this money that they know you aren't able to per se pay back, so that in 6 months you don't have a choice but to come back to them. And in 6 months, since you don't have a choice, you are going to come back to them. They're going to just give you another loan and you have another fixed fee back. And sure, it might be a slightly lower interest rate, but it may not be because your finances may not be in as good of a condition. If you're not performing as well, or if you've got low cash flow or anything like that, they're going to look at it and say, no, thank you. That's too much of a concern, so we're going to give you a higher rate then. So they promise you one thing, and then they come back and change it and turn it around on you. That's where we're getting into this debt cycle, where you're ending up using debt to finance debt. And that's really the last thing you ever want to do, because when that's occurring, you're constantly having to stay in debt. That's why when we talked last week, I said whenever you're taking out debt, you want to make sure you've got a plan for that debt so that that debt makes you money and you can use that to increase your revenue, pay back that debt, and be in a better position than when you started. But when you're having to take out debt just to survive, that is the start of a debt cycle. We see all too often a client has operational issues, they're not charging enough, they've got too many employees, whatever it may be, they're spending too much on advertising, something there. There's a lot of different things that could be going on, but they have an operational issue, they've got no money, and they take out debt to give them money, but they don't make a change to their operations. So at the end of the day, they're still operating at a loss, and they've added on this debt pay down or this debt that they've got to finance. And most of the time, these fixed fee debts, they come with generally weekly payoffs of what you have to do. Now, to a point, that's nice because it's smaller amounts. Instead of having to pay $2,000, $5,000, whatever it may be a month, you're only having to pay $500, $1,000, $2,000 a week. So it's giving you smaller little chunks. But at the end of the day, it's the same amount, and it eats into you quicker and quicker and quicker. And you take a look at your bank account and you're like, crap, where did my money go? It's going to financing and paying off this debt that you took out. Then you've got no money. You're back in the same position that you were in when you took this loan out in the first place, and we have to go and either look for another loan, or you're stuck at, hey, it's been 6 months, we can refinance, and you have to take that refinance there. Anytime you are looking to refinance, there's nothing wrong with refinancing, but it needs to come with a lower pay rate, and it needs to come with a plan to get out of the situation that you're currently in. If you were just going out and taking out debt just to pay back more debt, you are in a debt cycle. Because the more debt that you're taking out, the higher that rate's going to end up being. At the end of the day, to take out any form of loan, a bank is going to want to see this is your P&L, this is your debt schedule, and if they see that you have a lot of debt, you're risky to lend to, so they're going to charge you more. And a lot of times when we look at these companies that are coming to you, they're going to charge an origination fee. Generally, that's going to be anywhere from 5 to 10% of the loan. So you might get a text, or you might get an email, or you might go online and they say, hey, we're going to give you a $100,000 loan, but then there's a 5% origination fee. So they're only depositing $95,000 in the first place. Automatically, you're already out the window at $5,000. Then they say, okay, in addition to that $5,000 origination fee, your payback is going to be $130,000. At the end of the day, now you've paid $35,000 to borrow $95,000. That doesn't sound like a huge delta there, but that's 36.84% of the money that you borrowed. Most of the time, that's going to come with a 12, maybe 18 to 24 month period. So that's a lot of money that you're paying back over that period. Last week, I mentioned getting a secured loan, like if you were going to get a vehicle loan without any special buy downs or anything like that, you're probably looking in a 7 to 12% range, depending on your credit rating and everything there. A 36% pay down or a 36% rate is substantially, that's higher than what you would pay in a credit card debt situation. Keep that in mind. If we're talking about a 7% loan, even a 10% loan on a vehicle that you're buying, and you go and you buy a $50,000 vehicle, you're probably going to end up looking at paying back, round numbers here, and I'm not using a calculator, so please don't get mad at me, but round numbers, you're probably going to be looking at about $62,000 in total payback. But that $62,000 in total payback, that's only going to be over a 3-5 year period. So sure, it's still $12,000. That's still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's over 3 to 5 years, not a year to 2 years. It's a much longer period with a much lower rate there. So that's something we want to consider with these. At the end of the day, getting into these MSA loans, that's what a lot of them are called, managed service agreement loans, because what a lot of these are doing is they are coming to you and basically buying your future sales. When you sign the contract, you're saying, hey, I'm selling $100,000 of my future sales to you. And they're going to take out that money from your future sales. Most of these companies are not out here to help you get better off. If you end up in one of these debt cycles, there's two things you can do. First, we've got to look at some form of refinancing. We need to go to a bank, we need to go to a credit union, we need to get a line of credit, something where we've got a fixed interest rate, a longer period to pay it off, and a simplified method here to get that rate down. So instead of having a 36+% situation going on here, we can get you down into the sub 20%, because anything over 20% is ridiculous in the rates that are being charged. Again, most credit cards are going to charge 18 to 27% interest. If you're paying for debt that's not on a credit card at higher than that, that's insane and honestly very risky. So we really want to watch and try to avoid that as much as possible. The next thing that we really want to do is make sure that we stop taking out more loans to do that. It may be hard, but we've got to look at what is the issue that we're facing and how can we make sure we're running the business as efficiently as possible. Because if we're just coming over here and we're taking out debt, and we're not fixing the root of the issue, we've got to fix that root issue, get enough income in so that we can cover the payments that you need to make so that we can start paying off those loans, and then we can get back to a positive situation and move forward from there. It's not going to be easy. We've had to help a lot of clients do this because they end up in a bad situation, and it ends up in 6, 12, 18 months of there's very little reinvestment in the company. There's very little owner straws they can take. They've got to live very frugally themselves. But to save the business, that's what we have to do so that they can continue going on and operating and basically having their livelihood in the first place. Now, guys, go ahead, subscribe to our channel if you aren't already. We're going to continue this discussion about debt next week, kind of close it out, finish it off. But even once we're done with this debt discussion, every single week we're putting out videos talking about your finances, understanding your business, growing your business, becoming more profitable. We're working on that every single week so that you can become a master of your money and you can better understand and run your business. If you're struggling with debt, if you're struggling with understanding your finances, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to be your partner. We're here to help enhance and get your business to where you want to be. So give us a call here at Waterford Business Solutions at 864-351-0852 or shoot us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com.